Hello, within the next 10 minutes we'll discuss the most important business events taking place from April 9 to 15. This is Events Around the Corner on Kazakh TV. The global release of Galaxy S6 and Galaxy S6 Edge is scheduled for April 10. The winner in a space competition will be announced in the USA on April 12, the day when a man took the first space journey. The results of the ballots of Windsor employees will be summed up on April 14, possibly resulting in the first in history royal staff strike. Let's get to these and other events. On April 9, Facebook will kill off FriendFeed, a social feed aggregator. This service collected and published feeds from 54 sources, social media, blogs and microblogs. In August 2009, the aggregator was purchased by Facebook for $15 million and $32.5 million worth of Facebook stock. The project was founded by 4 ex-Google employees who also founded Gmail and Google Maps. 2 of them, Brett Taylor and James Norris, later joined Facebook. Taylor became the chief technical officer of the company and Norris took the position of a developer. It should be noted that many options currently employed by Facebook have been copied from the FriendFeed project. For example, the famous like button was used by FriendFeed in 2009, but was lagged by Facebook back then. The social feed has been inherited from the smaller service as well. FriendFeed combined a person's entire online activity, the picture that we can see on today's Facebook. The global release of Galaxy S6 and Galaxy S6 Edge smartphones is scheduled for Friday, April 10. We are wondering if the new products will help maintain Samsung's success. Last year, South Korea's digital frontrunner managed to keep the leadership in sales of smartphones in general. But in the fourth quarter, it gave in to Apple, its main competitor. 74.8 million Apple smartphones were sold in the last quarter of 2014, as compared to 73 million Samsung smartphones during the same period. As a result, Apple's shares in the smartphone market came to 20.4%, whereas Samsung accounted for 19.9%. In December last year, the Samsung sales dropped by 74% versus 2013. Analysts point to the growing popularity of iPhone as a main obstacle on the way of the Galaxy S6 new releases. The 7th Summit of the Americas will be over in the city of Panama on April 11. The event is held by the Organization of American States. This international entity was established in 1948. Its goals are to maintain peace and justice, protect territorial integrity and strengthen cooperation in the Western Hemisphere. Today, OAS includes all the 35 independent countries of the North and South Americas and is the hemisphere's key political and legal force. Kazakhstan, among other countries, is a permanent observer at the organization. It should be noted that Cuba agreed to take part in the Panama Summit this year. In 1962, the so-called Island of Freedom was expelled from OAS on an initiative of the United States. The Cuban government has been isolated from the continental summits ever since. The absence of Cuba in the regional organization led to numerous objections from Latin American and Caribbean basin countries. As a result, the resolution was cancelled by OAS in 2009. Havana welcomed the decision but hasn't formally rejoined the organization yet. It is expected that this year's summit will see a meeting of leaders of the USA and Cuba, Barack Obama and Raul Castro. Let me remind you that in December last year a statement was made on the normalization of relations between the two countries. At subsequent meetings between US and Cuban representatives, the opening of embassies in Washington, D.C. and Havana was discussed. My hope is that we will be able to open an embassy and that some of the initial groundwork will have been laid before the April 10-11 Summit of the Americas in Panama City, Obama said in an interview to Reuters. The International Day of Aviation and Cosmonautics will be celebrated on Sunday the 12th by many countries. The famous spaceflight of Yuri Gagarin took place on that day 54 years ago. The Vostok spacecraft was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome to complete an orbit of Earth. The flight lasted 108 minutes. 20 years later, on April 12 of 1981, the first piloted space shuttle flight was carried out. In April 2011, a resolution was passed at the plenary meeting of the UN General Assembly to declare April 12 the International Day of Human Spaceflight. Last year, the Spaceship Earth Grants Public Benefit Corporation announced an extraterrestrial competition. The winner will fly to space on board of a spacecraft. The organizers stated that they wanted to grant this opportunity to people from various cultural and economic backgrounds. The main grant envisages full training and the flight itself, including all costs related to food and transport to the launch pad. The winner will be announced this month on the day when the first human flight to space took place. The reception of documents for the Bolashak Scholarship will begin in Kazakhstan on April 13. The process will comprise 3 stages throughout the year. The objective of the program is to train professionals for the priority sectors of the Kazakh economy. The program includes a degree from higher educational institutions, as well as internships at leading companies and universities overseas. One needs to pass tests to get a scholarship. Only high-performing students fluent in the Kazakh and a foreign language are eligible for participation. During the first stage, a special commission will check the conformity of required documents and an average academic score of an applicant. Then Kazakh and foreign language proficiency tests will be held. If applicants pass them, they will be invited for interviews with university representatives, officials from the Ministry of Education and Science, and psychologists. The results of the competition will be announced in 2016. Ballots that have been cast by Windsor wardens for 2 weeks will be counted on April 14. A first industrial revolt among Windsor Castle staff may be the result. The ballot is carried out by Britain's 6th largest labour union, which is called Public and Commercial Services Union. The main complaints are low wages, standing at around £14,000 sterling per year, with the living minimum in the country comprising £15,500. In addition, wardens complain that they have a lot of unpaid extra duties, such as guided tours around the castle and interpretation for foreign visitors. The union stresses that the castle staff are not paid for these extra duties, although the admission fee is £19 per person. These workers are loyal to their employer and absolutely committed to ensuring visitors are given the royal treatment, PCS General Secretary Mark Sirwotka said in a statement. It is scandalous that staff are so appallingly paid and expected to do work for free that brings in money for the royal family. If the majority of staff approve of the industrial action, the so-called Italian strike will happen at the end of April. This action is the form of protest in which participants do no more than the minimum required by the rules of their contract. The Windsor wardens might refuse to have any extra duties. On April 15, the Russian Federation Council will consider amendments to the budget of 2015. The budget revenues are expected at 12.054 trillion rubles, or 70.1% of GDP. The expenditure will be 15.215 trillion rubles, or 20.8% of GDP. Under the new draft, the federal budget's deficit will be 2.675 trillion rubles, or 3.7% of GDP in 2015. In the existing law on the budget, the deficit was planned at 431 billion rubles, or 0.6% of GDP. The difference will be paid from the reserve fund. The new budget figures have been calculated based on the average annual price for Urals, which is $60 per barrel against $96, as well as a dollar-to-ruble exchange rate of 61 rubles 50 kopek. The Council Chamber chairperson Tatyana Golikova said the federal budget revenues were below what was planned by the government. She was quoted as saying that the oil revenues had dropped. According to the government, the amendments to the budget have been developed taking account of the anti-crisis measures to support key economic and business spheres. At the same time, the social spending will remain intact. This has been our perspective on the coming week. You've watched Events Around the Corner. See you next time on Kazakh TV.